So I'm going to talk today about some of the work that I do in my lab at San Francisco State University. So we're broadly a lab that studies plasticity processes and the physiology of injury. So how does injury change the life of the animal? And a subsection of that work is focused specifically on pain. So I'm going to show you work that relates to that specifically. So this is just a little about my research lab. We're at San Francisco State University. This is San Francisco right here. This is the university. This is the Pacific Ocean, so really great spot. My lab is both a marine biology culture facility and a neuroscience lab. So we have about 1,000 gallons of seawater where we culture two species. We culture Euprymna scalopes, which is the Hawaiian bobtail squid, this animal, and we culture Sepia bandensis. And then we also work with multiple wild-caught octopus species from commercial vendors, so we don't necessarily always know what species they are. We're a little bit dependent on what the collectors catch, and so we have a number of different animals housed in the lab at any one time. Ultimately, the lab wants to understand how and why injury changes the nervous system. So that is, how does the nervous system undergo plasticity in such a way that it changes the behavior of the animal, and how is that behavior adaptive? How does it help the animal get on with its life? In humans and in mammals, we accept that pain is a useful component of an injury response. Pain is protective for us, pain is adaptive for us, but we don't necessarily know if that's the same in cephalopods. That's part of the work that we do. So one of the major research questions is, do cephalopods feel pain? That's what I'm talking to you about. And in this kind of crowd, I don't need to sell this very hard, but this is interesting for several reasons. Obviously ethical and regulatory reasons. We are in the United States, so we are not regulated in any way for the work that we do on cephalopods, so we do not have to be concerned about getting approval for our work. But what we do is try to provide the evidence that would inform regulations for places like the EU, where we can do work that would here already be heavily restricted, even though the evidence that we're gathering is directly relevant to the correct implementation of those legislations over here. We're also interested in the broader idea of translational and comparative models of pain. Pain in humans is a huge biomedical issue, but it's very poorly understood. So over the course of my career, I've worked in pain research in humans, in rodent models, and in vertebrate models, and in none of these systems do we have a good understanding of what pain is, how does it work, and how do we fix it. And so a broader comparative perspective can sometimes be really useful for that. So that's another reason that we do cephalopods. We're also interested in evolution. How did pain come to be in some animals, not necessarily in all animals? How did complex brains that support affective states evolve? Cephalopods are perfect, everybody here knows that. They're invertebrates, so they have an independent evolutionary history, but they have very complex vertebrate-like brains. So in some way, they're the perfect model animal. So, I know we've talked about pain a little bit, you guys talked about pain a little bit yesterday, so I apologize if this is a review. I missed yesterday because of my teaching schedule. So let me just quickly sort of set up things that I think animals need to be able to experience pain, and things that we need to be able to see the animal doing to be able to be convinced that it's in pain. So what do they need? Firstly, they need peripheral receptors that are tuned to noxious stimulation. Those are nociceptors. They need to be plastic. One of the fundamental things about pain is that it is responsive. Our pain threshold changes depending on whether or not we're injured. If I sunburn myself and take a warm shower, that is super unpleasant, but it's not normally unpleasant if I take a warm shower. So it's a necessary part of the pain experience for peripheral noxious stimulus detectors to be plastic. They also need extensive central processing. So it's not enough just to have a nociceptor that's embedded in a reflex circuit like we have in our spinal cord. That reflex circuit that whips our hand out of the way the second that we touch a hot stove, that's not our conscious control. That's not pain, that's a nociceptive reflex. And mammals have an entirely separate set of neurons that bring that information to the brain that allow us to suffer as a result of that stimulation. If an animal doesn't have that, it can't feel pain. We don't know what cephalopods have. My lab works primarily in the periphery. So I'm going to talk mostly about peripheral receptors and not so much about central processes. So we're going to talk mostly about recordings that we've done from the periphery. In terms of what would this look like, obviously there's lots of ways to measure pain, there's lots of ways to interpret pain. These are three of the most fundamental kind of accessible things that I think we can focus on to get at this idea of building a consensus of evidence of whether or not we think animals feel pain. There's no single neural circuit that is the pain circuit. There's no single neuron that is the pain neuron. There's no single behavior that is the pain behavior. And so we're looking at this sort of preponderance of evidence. And so we're looking for changes in spontaneous behaviors, changes in evoked behaviors. So how does the animal respond doing its natural thing? How does it respond when I poke it? Learned behaviors. Pain should be very aversive, so we expect to see changes to learning. And ultimately, we're looking for a reversal of those behaviors with known analgesics, and I'm going to talk about that very, very end. So I'm going to start with what would they need? All right. The first thing they need are nociceptors. And so what I'm showing you here is work that we published a couple of years ago in the Journal of Neuroscience. This is Loligopelii. This work was done at Woods Hole with Roger Hanlon. And this is the preparation that we use to identify nociceptors in cephalopods. This is the fin of the animal here, which has been isolated from the animal. And this is the fin nerve, and this is just a little drawing of a suction electrode that we put on it. The fin has one nerve that goes into it, and so we can capture all of the neural activity in the fin just with a simple suction electrode. So this is a beautiful preparation for looking at peripheral responses. What we do with this preparation is poke it with these things. So these are standard in pain research. If you're not familiar with them, what they are is basically fishing line on a stick, and it's fishing line of different thicknesses that bends at different forces. And when you apply it to your tissue and it bends, the force that's produced at the tip is constant. And so these are calibrated to produce different forces with different filaments. And so we can apply a sequence of these filaments and know how much force we're applying to the tissue. This is what happens to the neural signal when we do it. So we're up here in part B. Before we do anything to the fin, so our injury here is crushing on the fin, but before we do it, we can touch the fin with these different forces of filaments, and we see that there are some spikes produced. So these are sensory afferents firing away. Then we crush the tissue with forceps, and so that's depicted right here. And we come back 5 minutes later, and we do exactly the same sequence of touches, and now what we see is not only are there far more spikes produced, but the identified units, the units that are consistently firing here, are reducing their threshold. So this is a nociceptor, this unit right at the far end here, only fires in response to 100 grams, which is very firm. If we look down here, that unit is firing now down here at 2 grams. So it's a significant reduction in the threshold for activation of this unit. So this is beautiful short-term sensitization. This is the plasticity that we're looking for. If we look at this over the course of 30 minutes, we see that whether we're touching right by the crush or a little bit distant from it, there's a big increase in the number of spikes that are produced in response to each one of these filaments. So this is beautiful short-term sensitization, one of the requirements of an animal capable of producing pain. One of the questions that we have, though, from that experiment is, well, how long does it last? In humans and in mammals, we know that pain can fundamentally remodel the nervous system. If you have a premature infant that's subjected to painful intervention in the course of keeping it alive, often that child grows up to be a young adult with severe pain dysfunction. And we think that this is because as the nervous system is still establishing itself, very painful stimulation effectively changes the way that the nervous system is put together. And so this is a fundamental thing in mammalian pain systems. We wanted to know, does that happen in cephalopods as well? So this is work done with Euprima. We culture these in the lab. They're perfect for this. They're sexually mature at 2 months. They're breeding at 2.5 months. They're dead by 4 months. So they're a perfect animal to look at lifelong effects in. We can take Euprima hatchlings at 3 weeks of age, where they're about 2 millimeters long, and we can crush on their fins, so we can injure them very early on in their life. And then we leave them. We let them go through their life. They breed naturally. They interact naturally. We don't do anything else to them. When they are literally on death's door, we take them and we record from their neurons. And this time we're recording in 2 different places. This is a little hard to see on this screen. We can record from the fin nerve, the trace here is shown in green. We can record from the pallial nerve, so information going up to the brain, and that trace is here. When we look at the summary data, what we see is that in animals that were injured, this is the trace from the fin nerve, injured versus sham, pallial, injured versus sham. Animals that were injured in early life have significantly more spikes produced. And so these, I just want to emphasize, these animals were not re-injured. This is a single injury very early on in their life, and they are hypersensitive all the way through to old age. So there's this profound plasticity in the nociceptors that suggests that these animals are different once they're injured. That has ethical implications for us maintaining animals for long periods after injury. Okay, we have a lot more data, and I have limited time, so I'm just going to show you a little bit. So, and I'm also going to leave aside central processes for right now. Our lab doesn't do a lot of work in the central brain. We know nociceptors go to the central brain. We know behaviors come out of the central brain. We don't know a whole lot else. And so if anyone wants to take up the question of what happens to the information as it goes in there, we would be happy to give you all of our data and let you go to town on that. We are probably not going to do that work. What we do though, is a lot of behavior. So I'm going to quickly zip through these behavioral assays and show you what we know about each one of these. Okay. Injury profoundly changes defensive behavior. So after injury, this time on the arm, we can look at how animals behave after injury at these certain time points when we go and mess with them. So in this case, this is an animal in a tank that's been injured and we're chasing it with a stick because we're trying to touch it with a von Frey filament. But as we chase it, we see that animals that are injured make a whole lot more ink, and so they're kind of anxious, they're much jumpier than control animals. If we look at how long it takes them to return to normal behavior after we stop messing with them, we also see that it takes injured animals significantly longer to go from this escalated defensive state back to their normal behavior. So these animals have significant changes in the way that they respond to stressful situations, in just the same way that when you have a headache or a broken leg, you're kind of grumpy and you're kind of jumpy, and maybe you snap at people, whereas normally you might not do that. So, similar kinds of behaviors. We also see changes in social or in grouping behavior. So in this study, this is a separate study, we're looking at how injured animals behave when they're given the chance to school with conspecifics. So there's one injured animal, a group of uninjured conspecifics, and we look to see if the injured animal wants to be a member of the school. Schooling is protective. If you're feeling anxious about the world, you're probably more likely to want to school. And that's what we see with injured animals. They're more likely to be in a school. If we look at their position within the school, though, we see that they're more likely to be on the edge. And this is a little bit counterintuitive because the most protected position in a school is right in the middle. What we think is happening here is that the animals are so jumpy, they're so hypervigilant, that they're trading off being in the school and being on the outside of the school where they can best keep a lookout for predators. And so they're making these dynamic decisions about what's my risk, how do I feel, and how should I behave. And so this is fairly complex behavior. We also see changes to spontaneous behaviors like hunting and exploration. So these are data from octopuses, and this is work done by a master's student in my lab, and it's preliminary. I'm showing you fairly new data. What we see here is that after arm injury, octopuses have reduced hunting motivation for at least 2 days after injury, but their exploration isn't any different to sham. So all of the animals decrease their exploration as they become familiar with the arena that we place them in, but it's not different between injured and sham. So hunting behavior changes, exploration doesn't. In squid, it's the opposite. I'm not going to show you those data. So species-specific requirements are a big thing for cephalopods. Learned behavior. One of the things that we've just started doing is looking at learned behavior with cuttlefish, Sepia bendensis, using this pawn in the tube procedure, which I think many of us here are probably familiar with. This is a photo sequence of Euprimna doing this. It's basically they strike at a shrimp that's confined in a beaker. They can't get it, they hit the glass with their tentacles. It's either aversive or it teaches them they can't get the food. Either way, they stop doing it after a while. We can take Sepia bendensis and injure them right on the tentacle clubs that hit the glass, and we can look to see how their behavior changes. We would hypothesize that if that's painful, they should learn more quickly, and they should retain that memory for longer. So again, brand new data, literally an N of 1 in each group, but our one injured animal only struck once. It struck once, and then it did not do it again, which suggests that it's either very aversive or the animal was just very demotivated to hunt. We haven't had a chance yet to look at memory. We collected these data 2 days ago. However, this is a useful way to look at using these validated behavioral tasks that all of us are using and employing them for a welfare purpose. And so one of the reasons I'm showing you this is to give you the idea that we have a ton of behavioral assays for cephalopods, and nearly every single one of those can be repurposed to look at welfare. So I'm just showing you this to encourage that sort of line of thought. The last thing I want to talk about is the sort of gold standard in pain research. If the animal looks like it's in pain, to convince everybody, you need to show that that behavior goes away when you give it a validated analgesic. We don't have any analgesics for cephalopods. We certainly don't have any anxiolytic drugs, so drugs that reduce anxiety. This is data that doesn't exist yet. This is something that we're doing in my lab in the next year or so. But if anybody wants to talk to me about potential analgesics, I would love to have some suggestions. I have a student that is so excited about this, and I literally don't know what to tell her in terms of what drugs should you be dumping into them. So please give me your suggestions. She will be very grateful. So let me summarize. Do they feel pain? That's up to you. We are a pain lab, which means it's our job to be objective. We just give you what we know, and everybody else decides. Do they have receptors? Absolutely. Are they plastic? Yes, they are. Central processing of that information, that's a necessary thing for pain. That's not something that we can answer at the moment. Changes to behavior? Absolutely. And we have a lot more behavioral assays that I don't have time to show. Reversal with analgesics or anxiolytic drugs, we would love to have that evidence. We don't have it yet. So that's a big future direction from my lab. And I'm just going to put up acknowledgements, fantastic students, fantastic funding, and I'm happy to take your questions.